Alright, hello everyone, welcome back. Today we have chapter 26 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. We got a lot to discuss. As always, let's go ahead and start off with the cover review. We got the menace himself, Momoshiki, on the cover. Really dope cover. I think this is probably now in my top 5 for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex covers. I really like the way the colors look on this, the white and the maroon. Yeah, this is maroon. I was gonna say red, but this is definitely more maroon. They all look super good. I really like it. And then like the background being kind of like a purplish, kind of lavender tinted, like white almost. It's just a really nice offset to the rest of the design. But yeah, no, this design is really cool. The Renegon right here on his palms are like, they're not like purple. They're like a bluish tint instead, which I think complements the entire look really well. But yeah, really cool to see Momoshiki. We know he came back in the previous chapter. Let's see if he has any role in this chapter. But to start off with, we start with something that I don't think a lot of people will be happy about. We start off with Himawari and Inojin. Inojin has brought her a gift. It's some honey that's always sold out within the village. It's apparently Himawari's favorite. It made her day, and with that, Inojin walks out. And as Inojin is walking out of the house, Koji's toad decides to talk to him, asking himself several questions. And Inojin is kind of confused by the toad, but the toad continues on to say, "You have romantic feelings toward Himawari Uzumaki, am I correct?" And Inojin is just kind of shocked by this. He is blushing, so that kind of confirms it. And the toad basically says, "Very well. Your reaction says enough. Do you wish to protect Himawari?" And Inojin says, "Yes, of course I want to protect her." And he says, "Good. That's all I needed to know." And Inojin is confused and asks, "Who exactly are you?" And the Koji Toad just says, "Look, our interests are aligned. If you want to know more about what's going on, just follow me." And with that, a reverse summoning jutsu is enacted by Koji, which summons Inojin next to Kashin Koji. He actually reveals himself to Inojin, which is kind of crazy. Koji has been trying to stay in the background and everything, so the fact that he's willing to reveal himself to Inojin, I'm kind of surprised by. And Inojin does know who he is. He remembers that he is a member of the Kara, so Inojin's not completely lost here. And then, also in the room, he says, "Don't take this as a threat, but this place doesn't have a physical exit, so you can't leave on your own." We have Boruto himself sitting on this, I don't know, Grandmaster chair. I don't know what you call it. I don't want to say Grandpa chair. I don't know what you would call it. It's just, let's call it a throne. It's not a throne, but we're going to call it a throne. But yeah, Borutos is basically aura farming on here. And he tells them that once we finish talking, we'll send you back to the Hidden Leaf Village. And Inojin is shocked to see Boruto. Now, this does confirm something, though. We had thought that Koji and Boruto have been staying in a Orochimaru hideout due to the design of how the walls look in the place. It's very similar to what we've seen before in some of the Orochimaru hideouts in Naruto and in Shippuden. But it does not seem like that is the case if there's no physical exit. Now, it could still be an Orochimaru hideout that they've modified, but I honestly think it's more of just a random dimension that Boruto teleports to using the Karma. Maybe that's what it is. That seems like the best guess. I mean, if there's no physical exit, maybe that's what he means, is that it's like a whole nother dimension. I don't know, but I think this kind of gives more credit to this not being an Orochimaru hideout. Do I ever think it's really going to be confirmed? Probably not. But regardless, let's move on. We cut back to the tree clones, and we see that Jura is crying. Both Hidari and Mamushi are just looking at him, wondering what the heck is going on. Why is Jura crying? And Jura is reading a novel. And it's a fictional novel, but it seems like the story in it managed to make him cry. And Hidari says something really interesting here. He says that you had a similar experience a little while ago. And we cut to Matsuri when she was crying in the fight against Konohamaru. Jura proceeds to say that was Matsuri's emotional reaction. to the various feelings she came from interacting with Konohamaru: anger, sadness, and a glimpse of love. Jura proceeds to say that he's gained a great deal through Matsuri, including these tears. And he proceeds to ask Hidari if that is icky, because if you remember in the last chapter, it ended with Hidari saying that Jura is totally ick. Hidari says no, but before we continue on, very interesting wording here. Hidari saying that Jura himself had this similar experience, but it was Matsuri that actually experienced it. So, is this like Hidari saying that, yes, all the tree clones did come from like the same source, the Ten Tails, but even though that they're technically separate people, are all the tree clones Jura? Because why would Hidari say that he had a similar experience when it was Matsuri that cried? And Jura does say that he gained a great deal from Matsuri. So is Jura able to basically feel everything that the other tree clones are feeling? So this just further confirms that Jura is the leader. So does this mean that Jura's, like, you know, source is the Ten Tails? He is the Ten Tails himself? Because, you know, like Hidari, his source is Sasuke. Mamushi, his source is Code's minion. Matsuri was Moegi. Ryu was Shinki. So does this mean that Jura's is the Ten Tails, and that's why Hidari is saying that he had a similar experience, because they are all the Ten Tails, thus they are all Jura? I feel like I'm making that more complicated than what it should be, but I don't know. Like, that's just what I feel like it should be. And also, I just noticed something. I didn't see this earlier. If you look here in this panel up here, where Jura's talking about a glimpse of love, we see Hidari's reaction and Mamushi's reaction, and Mamushi's actually looking at a porno mag, or a bikini magazine here. That seems really random. I just now noticed that while I was talking. I was like, what is he looking at? I was like, is he reading a bikini magazine? Yeah, I didn't notice that on the first time I read through this, but alright. Regardless, we continue on, and Hidari says that it's intriguing that Jura is feeling all this stuff, and Jura says that just this one interaction is not enough to understand and control love. We need additional intel. And Mamushi proceeds to speak up and says, "This isn't so profound as intel, but I think I realized why I want to chase after Ada. It's not because I want to devour her simply in the sense of consuming her, but he wants control. I want her genetic information to become mine." So the way I'm taking this is that he wants Ada's power himself. Ada's power to control people. That is what Mamushi is really after. He's not after Ada just because he wants to consume her, or because she was a connection to his anchor being, being Code's minion, because Code's minion was there when Code awakened Ada and Damon. No, this is because he wants her power, not just her in general. And he proceeds to say that he does not give a squat about love or all that. He just thinks that the divine tree species should thrive more than what they are right now. And Jura is also interested by this ideal, and he says it might not be a bad way to learn about love. We then cut to Shikamaru, who is walking in the hallways of the Hokage's building, and he proceeds to receive a mind transmission from Koji, and he's wondering who exactly is Koji using to get his mind transfer communication through. And of course, this is where Inogen came in. Inogen is transmitting this conversation, and it's through, or not through, but under or around the sensory unit, so that way the sensory unit can't hear it and they can't record it. So they have no idea that this is actually happening. And Koji is basically here to help guide Shikamaru through this meeting he's about to go through with the elders. Because, worst case scenario, he could lose the Hokage position right here, right now at this meeting. And that would be a problem for Koji's plans. So we then cut to Shikamaru walking into the room, and we see quite a few people. We see Konohamaru, we see Sai, we see the two elders, and then we see a person that I feel like we've never seen before. I don't even remember this person being in Shippuden. I might just be misremembering, but I do not remember ever seeing this dude, Lord Kobu. I don't remember this dude from Shippuden, or even OG Naruto. Maybe I'm just blanking. But regardless, we have this character here. He is the Lord's personal Chamberlain. And basically, the discussion of this meeting is to figure out why Shikamaru sent that mission out into the sand on his own. He did not have permission to do this. He planned it all, and he carried it out all on his own. And Konohamaru apparently was not aware of this, as he is taken by surprise. Sai is kind of giving a side eye to Shikamaru. And Chamberlain proceeds to say, or Kobu proceeds to say, that he's here as an observer to see if the Leaf Village is really necessary right now, and what they might receive, whether it be budget cuts or even more than that, which is probably referring to removing Shikamaru as the Hokage. Shikamaru proceeds to explain that, as you both know, the village and the Land of Fire are under threat from the Divine Tree Beings, that they're not the negotiating type, but because of that, we've managed to obtain some intel. That's why this mission happened, due to this intel that we received. The elders proceed to ask, where did you get this intel from? Koji speaks in Shikamaru's mind, telling him, hey, do not let them know about us being able to see the future, or possible futures. Shikamaru just says he's sorry, but he can't go into details about his intel, and he says it's for the better of everyone that he doesn't say anything, because it'll keep them safe. And Shikamaru says that as ninja, sometimes on the front lines we have no choice but to rely on these uncertain factors. So that's why I went ahead and followed my intuition and acted on this intel that we had, with the resolve that if something went wrong, I would take full responsibility. The elders then proceed to ask, alright, despite the intel, what we're concerned about is the source. We hope that your source is not the traitor Boruto. We hear that he is versed in the Divine Tree's biology for some reason, and some even believe that Boruto is working with the Divine Trees in order to deceive Konoha and destroy it from within, as revenge for us kicking him out. Konohamaru proceeds to speak up, saying with all due respect, he does not believe that. Shikamaru tries to stop Konohamaru from speaking, but Koji tells him to let Konohamaru speak, as this will help divide the anger from the elders, from him, from purely being on Shikamaru to also be directed at Konohamaru a little bit, thus making it easier for Shikamaru to get out of this meeting with his Hokage's position still intact. Konohamaru proceeds to say that Boruto actually saved his life during the last mission, so based on his own personal interactions with him, he does not believe Boruto will harm Konoha. The male elder proceeds to say, are you actually taking his side, Konohamaru? And Konohamaru kind of stumbles a little bit and just says, I just think we should hear him out. The elders proceed to get mad at this, calling Konohamaru an idiot, saying that Boruto struck down the Hokage. How dare we listen to him? There's no room on this debate. Konohamaru tries to butt back in, but Shikamaru tells him to be quiet, and then Kobu proceeds to talk again, saying that yes, this mission in the sand seems to have been a success, but there is a mole within the village communicating with Boruto. That will be a major problem that affects the Land of Fire as well as the Hidden Leaf Village, and he will find them, and he will spare none of them. So this guy is dead set on finding out who is interacting with Boruto. It seems like they're dead set on knowing that Boruto is the person who gave them the intel. They just want to know who exactly is acting on it, and punish them. Pretty much, that's pretty much it. Kobu proceeds to tell Sai to escort Konohamaru to the interrogation room, as he will question him himself. Sai responds, and basically Kobu proceeds to say, when Boruto escaped, he had to have had someone on the inside who helped him. I will expose them. And this basically makes everyone freak out, and Shikamaru is This, I feel like the comedy in the last couple chapters has really kind of like gone up since the beginning, because like this little panel here of Shikamaru with the sweat mark, it's such a like, I know it's not supposed to be taken in like a comedic effect, but like the way it's drawn and stuff, this definitely feels more like a comedic take of doing this type of reveal. You know, like Konohamaru and Sai, it's kind of more like the dramatic feel to it. But the way Shikamaru's drawn with like the sweat coming down his head and everything, it feels more comedic. Or it's like Shikamaru knows, like, ah, crap, I got caught. You know, like it has more of a comedic take to it. I don't know, maybe I'm just like misreading it, or just really like trying to force something there that's not. But that definitely feels like a more comedic way of showing the Shikamaru's dilemma there. Inogen proceeds to say all the rules that Koji and Boruto are breaking here, such as interfering on a meeting with the elites of Konoha, a personal mind transmission, a transmission outside of the sensor unit. There's so many rules that they're breaking. He basically asked them, is this how you guys are always working, always breaking rules? And Koji says, we're being hunted, Inogen. We have no choice but to be crafty and break rules. And don't forget, you have now broken those rules as well. Boruto then speaks up and says, our enemy won't stop at anything, so we have to conform to the enemy's methods at times. We don't have the luxury of operating within the rules. You gotta always be thinking about what you truly need, using your brain. Inogen takes a moment to kind of absorb this information and says, having fought Jura, I understand. We have to do what we have to do in order to protect everyone, especially Himawari, from the monster that is Jura. And Inogen basically resolves himself to have the power and will to continue on this path. So it seems like Inogen is willing to work with Boruto and Koji more. It doesn't seem like this is going to be a one-time thing. It seems like Inogen's willing to, kind of be their inside man a little bit. Koji then proceeds to talk to Boruto, asking if it has been resolved. And this is, in my opinion, this is maybe the most interesting part of the chapter. There's a lot of interesting things in this chapter, but this one really caught my eye. Koji proceeds to ask, in terms of Momoshiki, you offered him a deal, right? And Boruto says, relax, I'll hold up my end. And Koji says, that's not an answer. I don't care for that attitude of yours. And he gives him a really stern look. And then Boruto actually replies back in a very offended manner, saying, right back at you. You're always holding back the inconvenient bits. How many were supposed to die during the sand mission? How many were you willing to let sacrifice? And Inogen, noticing what's going on here, tries to get them both to calm down, but Koji continues, saying, I merely guided things toward the most likely path for Sarada to awaken her Mangekyo, in order to avoid a future where many more people get killed. If you have any other childish criticisms to make, let me hear them now. Boruto then proceeds to just lean back in his chair and says, we're wasting time, can we move on? And Koji agrees. So there is definitely some tension between Boruto and Koji. They are not as in sync with each other as we may have thought. Like, we've seen them disagree a little bit in previous chapters, especially when Boruto went out into the sand when Koji warned him not to, because that would bring out Jura. But it seems like these two really do have some anger with each other in terms of how this whole thing is turning out, because Koji refuses to tell Boruto everything because he doesn't want Boruto, my assumption would be he doesn't want Boruto to try to be like, alright, well, if this happens here, this happens here, if I do this, this will change that, and with this, I can change this to a future where it's better for us, because by doing that, a lot of Koji's predictions end up being completely false, and then they're back to not knowing what's going to happen. I mean, we saw this happen with Kawaki. Because of Boruto making that move with Kawaki to make him get his power earlier, everything changed, and Koji was left completely in the dark until he got another blast of the future and was able to see many more ways that this could go. So this basically kind of went from Koji thinking he knew what was going to happen to finding out that no, he was completely wrong. So all of his plans could have easily caused something worse to happen because Boruto threw a huge wrench in them. So this is basically, Koji is basically saying what we can see is better than what we cannot. While Boruto is kind of more of, I'm willing to change things even if we don't know what will happen to avoid the bad things that we know can happen, if that makes sense. They have a clashing ideology here about how they should be using Koji's power, basically. Inogen proceeds to recommence the mind transfer to Shikamaru, and Koji proceeds to ask him what's going on in the Leaf Village right now. Shikamaru says that Konohamaru has been escorted to the interrogation room. He suspects that his turn will be coming up soon, but for right now, he's still free. Koji says, good. Contact us immediately if anything changes. The upcoming battle will go better if you are the Hokage. And Koji proceeds to say, in about 1 week from now, the divine tree known as Mamushi will appear in Konoha. So it seems like in 1 week, Mamushi will make his move on Ada. Koji proceeds to say his target is Ada. Sorry, I got a little bit ahead of myself. And he will tell Shikamaru what Mamushi's abilities are and how to deal with them. And Inogen, for some reason, looks really shocked at this, and then Boruto is still giving Koji a death glare pretty much here. If you look. Shikamaru's just smoking. Inogen kind of looks like, what? Like, how do you know that? And then Boruto's still just death glaring, or just kind of deadpan staring at Koji. So, really interesting to see that their relationship is not as good as we thought it was. Like, I knew there was some tension, but it definitely feels like there's a lot more brewing there than what I originally thought. They are not working together because they've grown a bond in the time since Koji has found Boruto and Boruto was out on the run. They are only working together because they're forced to, is what it feels like at this point. But regardless, we move on to Ada, Sarada, and Sumari. They're all hanging out together, and Ada is basically asking them about their feelings about Boruto. And Ada straight up just says to Sarada, when will you confess your love to Boruto? And Sarada is just really embarrassed. He's like, oh, when? What do you mean by when? And Ada says, wait, didn't you just end up confessing that you like Boruto? And Sarada's just like, what do you mean? Where did that come from? Besides, that's the last thing Boruto needs right now. He's got a lot on his mind. There's a lot of things going on. He doesn't need this on top of that. Ada calls Sarada boring and asks Sumari if she has the same opinion. And Sumari says, it just depends on the timing, but knowing me, I'll end up blurting it out. Ada gets super excited about this, kind of like, you know, how girls would with like girl talk. You can see Ada's just like, oh my god, it's so exciting, I won't be able to look away at all. I like how Ada basically says, yeah, I'm gonna be, you know, sneaking in on that conversation. I will be looking with my eye to see that. But Sumari proceeds to say, I think Sarada's the same no matter what she says. We both might just blurt it out at any chance. And Ada says, perhaps you're right given Sarada's offensive before on this. And Sarada is just continue to be baffled by Ada. And Sumari just says, but in the end, what all matters is Boruto's feelings. And like Sarada said, he really does have bigger problems for the foreseeable future. So this kind of seemed like it was going to just go the way of more boy talk with the girls. But then Ada completely flips the script here, saying, sorry to break the mood, but speaking of love, I'm going to ask you once again, are you two captivated by me? And both Sarada and Sumari just kind of stare, and they realize that Damon's in the room as well, staring them down, waiting for their answer. We flash back to Shikamaru telling them, remember, make sure that Ada does not find out that her charm does not work on you, because since it does not work on you, you can kill Ada. And because of this, Damon will not let you live. Your lives may be in danger from this. Ada then proceeds to say, I mean, it's obvious you guys don't, because how else are you able to talk about someone? How else are you able to talk about liking or loving someone else like Boruto, other than me, right in front of me? It simply is impossible at all. So with this reveal right here, does this mean that ever since pre-time skip Ada has known? Because like pre-time skip, they had these talks about like boys and stuff. Now it wasn't like as direct as they are now, but I feel like even back then Ada knew these two aren't affected by my charm at all. And now she's just straight up dropping the information to them that she knows that they aren't. And before these two even have a chance to do anything, Damon makes his move. Sarada activates her Mangekyo Sharingan, but before she can even do anything with it, Damon grabs them both by the neck. Damon proceeds to say, "You just tried to do something, didn't you, Sarada, with that Mangekyo Sharingan of yours? Whatever it is, it's useless. I'll kill you before you launch it." And with that, that is how the chapter ends. So a really crazy ending. Did not expect to get to this point already. To already be at the point where Ada knows that Sarada and Sumari are unaffected by her ability. I guess it kind of makes sense to touch on this, because maybe with Mamushi coming in next week, or in 1 week into the Leaf Village, who knows, maybe they're getting this out of the way, this whole plot point, because maybe Ada will end up dying to Mamushi. I don't think she will, but I don't know, the fact that we're touching on this already, a little interesting considering we know what's coming up. But overall, really good chapter. I feel like there's a lot of good plot points here addressed. I know a lot of people aren't going to be happy about the amount of like relationship things that are happening with, you know, like Himawari and Inojin at the beginning, and then Sarada and Sumari once again at the end of the chapter taking up more time with the whole Boruto feelings, because that has been happening a lot in recent chapters. And I can see some people being upset about it, but I feel like this chapter, this should already have been something people realized. But if you hadn't realized it by yet, this chapter should cement it, is that love is going to be the key to everything in Blue Vortex. Love is going to be one of the biggest factors in the story. I would not be surprised if love is the way, if they do intend to reverse the whole Boruto and Kawaki situation to where they have their original lives back and everyone knows it and stops blaming Boruto for what happened to Naruto. I would not be surprised if the answer is love. Considering the fact that everyone's talking about love, even the tree clones themselves, Jura is wanting to understand and control love, when before he kind of just threw it off and said it was useless, it was a weakness. But now he wants to understand and control it after experiencing it, experiencing a fragment of it through Matsuri. Sorry, I blanked on the name for a second. Love is going to be the most important thing in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. It really is. It's going to be a constant factor throughout the entire story, and it's going to end up being the key to a lot of stuff. Now, the way they do it, I don't know, because it could work out really well, and it could also end up being extremely cheesy. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. But so far, I think it's fine. I think they've been setting everything up correctly. Or not, I don't want to say correctly, but they've been setting up things well. It's interesting. It's been keeping its pacing. I feel like the pacing's a little bit better than it has been with like pre-time skip. And then even at some points in the time skip, the pacing has been a little bit too fast. I feel like this is a nice medium between fast and slow. Like, some people might complain that this chapter is too slow, but I feel like we got a lot of plot here. I mean, we have a catch up with the tree clones. We know what their next plan is, or we know what the next attack's going to be. We've seen Boruto and Koji moving on with their next plan. We got an update on Shikamaru's entire plotline with the elders and trying to combat being the Hokage that the Leaf Village wants him to be and being the Hokage that they need him to be. And then we got an update with Sarada and Sumari. Like, we got a lot of plot points moving here. So I feel like the pacing for this chapter is really well done. I haven't seen too many people's opinions so far, but judging from what I've seen in the past, I can easily see this chapter being not everyone's favorite. But I really liked it. I think it's perfectly fine. Next chapter, I feel like we're probably going to get something very similar to this as well. I think we're probably going to get another chapter like this, and then the next chapter after that is probably when Mamushi's gonna begin his attack. Maybe it'll be like the cliffhanger for that chapter. Because I can easily see the next chapter kind of being fully about Damon, Sarada, Sumari, and Ada, handling that whole situation, Shikamaru and Konohamaru's interrogation, and then we'll get maybe a little bit more of Boruto, Inojin, and Koji talking to Shikamaru, and that's probably about it. We'll get the resolution to all that. Maybe we'll get a sneak peek at the tree clones or Mamushi, like getting prepared to attack the Leaf Village, and then the chapter after the next one. So the November chapter, I feel like, is when we'll probably see Mamushi begin his attack, or maybe he'll begin his attack at the very end of the November chapter. Like that's when he'll arrive in the Leaf Village. So I think it'll be a bit until we see the full attack, and I think that's fine. We still need to wind down a little bit, considering with the fact that we did just take out 2 tree clones in Ryu and Matsuri. Take out another one already this quickly, I don't see that happening. So it'll be a few chapters, but overall, let me know down below what you guys thought of this chapter. In terms of my wildcard prediction for next chapter, this is the craziest thing I could see happening next chapter. Let's see. Okay, here's my prediction. We know that Mamushi has kind of like noticed Ada watching before, right? We've seen him call out Ada when she was spying on them, and she refuses to do that now. I think Mamushi somehow, I don't know how, let's say Mamushi's somehow gonna find a way to kind of like reverse that on Ada, and he's gonna appear in the room, appear air quotes, and he's gonna tell Ada, I'm coming after you soon. And this is gonna make her freak out. She's gonna tell Damon to let go of Sarada and Sumari because she's gonna want them to protect her from Mamushi and stuff like that. Like I feel like Mamushi's gonna do something next chapter that's gonna cause Ada to freak out. That's my wild card prediction. So for anyone who doesn't know, wildcard prediction, it's stuff that's like 5% chance or less of happening. So like something really just out of the blue. Like Kakashi coming back would be a wildcard prediction, unfortunately, because I at this point, I'm not sure if we're ever going to see Kakashi again. But yeah, I think that'll be it. I think that's a decent wildcard prediction. Mushi will somehow freak Ada out next chapter. And that'll be the way that they kind of dissolve the tension in the room with Damon, Sarada, and Sumari. Or gets him to stop, wanting to kill them right now. It does seem like Damon's going to basically kill them here, unless Ada tells him not to. But regardless, with that being said, I will see you all next time. God bless. Happy reading. Have a good rest of your day /night. And I will see you all next time. Peace out.